Nino, great to be back with you.
Super.
All right, so
and then, by the way, Nino, just real quick, let me add this one thing. So it's just a letter on the part of the president concerning Vance. It just kind of enumerates things that are already there. The Constitution determines the right of succession between if a president passes for any reason or is unable to complete their office, and that goes to 25th Amendment or 25th.
I guess this is kind of making up my mind for me on J.D. Vance. I kind of felt like, I wasn't too sure about J.D. Vance, but Trump seems to really like this guy, huh?
Well, remember, he's doing his job. A vice president is not supposed to upstage the president. And he's, supposed to help do some of the extra stuff that's cleanup, be understanding of what's going on behind the scenes so he can seamlessly step into the position as much as possible if the president is unable to complete the job or passes. And so Trump is using Vance exactly as he intended to use him. Would he officiate in the same way Trump is? Probably not. And part of the reason is because he just doesn't have the same life history, the same juice as Trump does. We don't want anything to happen to Trump, but covering your bases and making sure that his wishes are clear and articulated, so that if something like that were to happen, there's latest current thoughts, if you will. Imagine, would Trump have written the same letter on behalf of Pence?
Hell no.
Oh, okay. And Pence was there because other people wanted him there as a safety net for them.
But isn't it the same kind of story with J.D. Vance? I mean, it's kind of the same theme, isn't it? Or no?
No, I think that's incorrect. And we know it for a lot of reasons, but I don't want to distract ourselves. I just wanted to, because what Ian has, and this part of the story there is probably more important for today. But, Trump's just dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's appropriate to put people at ease that these issues have been addressed. His feelings on this are current. And the threats, we should also read into that, the threats against President Trump are very, very real and continuing. So we're in a hell of a fight. And trip to China, all the dramas. Remember, in his first term, there was an errant surface-to-air missile that was fired that, by all accounts, was intended to accidentally take out Air Force One. So up in the Northwest, there are threats that are hard to, fully imagine, understand. By the way, the Q-400 aircraft that was doing barrel rolls with a kid who'd never actually flown before except on computers. Where it crashed, that was the control center that was used remotely for that missile. So there's a lot more to that story. We're going to learn things over the next years and decades even, as things continue to bleed out, that will just continuously shock people the depth of the enterprises within our own government and military operations that were controlling America and people involved in those, and including, of course, what Ian has with Brennan.
Before we get to all that, I just want to cover up one more thing. Tulsi Gabbard getting raided by the CIA. Is that true, or is that false? Fox reported it.
It's inaccurate. It's inaccurate. It's not that it's not true. It's inaccurate. Her office was not raided, but there was documents, I think about 40 boxes of documents, that some three-letter personnel came and reappropriated. That was stuff that would, I guess the way you'd say it, was under her care and control. So there's some questions.
So it wasn't an aggressive style type raid where they come in and shut everything down and take everything. It was just more so I guess you could call it a more subtle type. Did they ask for the documents, or did they come in and just take them?
No, they just came in, went in the room, grabbed the stuff, and left. And so there's been personnel out talking to them. What could they possibly sift it away? Remember, here's one important thing. And I remember back to a particular person who was determined to be passing secrets to the Soviets. And so at a certain point, in order to control the type of information that would be used in court, they planted some materials that were highly classified, but were not the things that we were actually going to do within a military operation. They planted it in this person's office and made a little bit of stink about the importance of these documents. So the person made copies and funneled them to his contacts with the drops and everything else. Then when he was arrested and prosecuted, they could pick and choose what they wanted to use in the prosecution. They used the documents that weren't actually what we decided to do from a technology standpoint, but they were all official. They were the real thing. It was just we had more advanced mechanisms in this particular type of technology. So they salted his work area. He took the bait and then conveyed that stuff, and so it controlled the narrative within the legal prosecution. Something similar to that wouldn't surprise me a bit is going on here. We know a number of the operatives that are playing around and doing things. We do want to be able to control what stuff comes out in the public and how it comes out. And of course, these are all documents that President Trump was going to see go to the public through Tulsi's work. So here they have a room that's got stuff that some people don't want released, might have names, certain relationships, and they let these guys have just enough access to a noose to hang themselves with, and appears that they did.
So Ian Trotier is here. He's the author of High Stakes Treason. I guess, Ian, I'll let you take it from here. You're going to be at the event June 15th to the 17th, correct, in Las Vegas?
Yeah, that's correct. I'll be presenting the information in the book on the 16th, Nino, 16th of June. I will be there throughout the duration of the event, and I've got some nice information to deliver to folks that will be in attendance. But to bring you up to speed with some of the work that I've done recently in the past few days, I just got back from D.C., Nino, and I met walking the Capitol with the information in the book. I was fortunate to actually exchange some FaceTime one-on-one with Senators Ron Johnson and Senators Rick Scott. In fact, Nino, Ron Johnson, when I showed him the book in hand, he was familiar with the book, and he said that his staffer would be reaching out to me. That individual is named Brian. This happened the day before the report last night on Jesse Waters about the, quote, raid. Looks like it wasn't a raid, but there were documents that were taken, 40 boxes from Gabbard's office for the redaction to take place. I met with Johnson in outside the Capitol, just an exchange before that. He was familiar with the book. He immediately had one of his staffers contact me. So that's something that is developing. He was very much interested in the contents of the book from my impression, and I've got some other daggers in the fire as well. But critical to the book, Nino, is that, as you may know from our last encounter together, there are three forwards. Two of the three forwards, the first one is written by Roger Stone, and the second of the three forwards is written by John Kiriakou. John Kiriakou, Nino, is a former CIA agent, and he was on last night with Jesse Waters. So Kiriakou is a critical piece to this Brennan investigation right now. I joined Matt Gaetz's show 2 nights ago, where we discussed briefly the FBI agents coming up from Miami that went to Langley. I don't know the names of those agents, but we do know that a release from Matt Gaetz that there's been FBI now questioning people at Langley again, and that happened the same night that I had met Senator Johnson on the Hill in that brief exchange. So there's lots of interesting things happening at the moment. Let me just revisit this quickly, Nino. So America's Voice had just posted with a journalist named McCabe that the raid, it wasn't a raid, it was a CIA access to Gabbard's office. Now, according to this journalist McCabe, who I'm not familiar with, they had access, they used code, that they had permission, that's what is told through America's Voice, to access this office, the CIA, and remove the boxes. Well, that made me immediately think of some of the information in high-stakes treason, because what we know is that behind the scenes, John Brennan created for himself a CT intel monopoly, which is a counterterrorism information intelligence monopoly. Well, in a nutshell, this is what came to my mind, was on page 112, and I just tweeted about it in response to that post by America's Voice. He states, this is John Brennan, he states that through the TTIC, now there's no relation, of course, with the TTIC, the Gabbard's office, that I know of, but he says 26 classified and unclassified networks flowed into the Terrorist Threat Interrogation Center, which is what gave way to the NCTC, the National Counterterrorism Center. What I'm saying is that Brennan created this as a result of 9/11, and what I'm doing is I'm portraying the power that I suspect John Brennan retains in the intelligence community in D.C. Therefore, we're going to suspect that perhaps the CIA, with John Brennan, and Patrick Byrne has stated recently in the past few months on Alex Jones that John Brennan still owns, that's a quote from Patrick Byrne, he still owns the top two layers of the CIA. That would, to me, impress upon me that he still controls it. Patrick Byrne, who's a CIA asset going back to 2006, Patrick Byrne himself is a former CIA asset. He still owns the top two layers of the CIA. Plus, 3 nights ago, my understanding, and I saw the clip, I think it was 3 nights ago, John Brennan himself, resetting the statutes of limitations, spoke to Nicole Wallace on MS Now and stated, this is before the disclosure with the CIA whistleblower on the Hill. John Brennan himself said that there is a legion of intelligence agents on the Hill working to undermine the president. That would be Donald Trump. John Brennan himself said that just a few nights ago. And if that is true, then again, I'm going back to page 112 in my book, continuing to say that the TTIC, he said, had more access to more information than anywhere in the government. And again, Nino, the reason I'm quoting that out of the book is that we may not, we being just members of the Republic, right? Just ordinary members of the Republic, all playing our role in society, we may not know the extent of the network of power that Mr. Brennan has created for himself inside the District of Columbia and our government, in our intelligence community.
So let me just get to what we were going to talk about here. So that's a great overview of what's going on here. But okay, Edward Snowden. This guy, could he be pardoned? And I have to pose it as a question here because it is FluffTube, it is YouTube. So it looks like he's going to get a pardon from Donald Trump. And if he does get a pardon from Donald Trump, what does that mean? Does that mean he will testify against Brennan and Comey and the usual suspects here?
That's exactly what it means.
What is the impact if he does?
Well, it gives high stakes treason major firepower, and for your viewers to understand, I received the information from me. The research that I compiled and turned into this book was given to me by an FBI agent, a former FBI agent. He spent over a decade in the D.C. field office, that provided me research that had been rejected by the FBI and lost him his job with a company called Savin and got him a death threat. And outside of the fact that his family called him crazy, he presented that research to me. I turned it into a book. What's important is that what we know is that in 2011, just going back here, 2011, when this former member of the intelligence community at the FBI was tipped off to what John Brennan should have known and should have done to prevent and help the Norwegians prevent the Oslo bombing, that's Anders Breivik, is that 2 years after he got tipped onto what John Brennan was sequestering. It means hiding vital national intelligence. Edward Snowden proved to be true, and that would be through X-Keyscore. So if we were to bring Edward Snowden back into the conversation regarding John Brennan, that supports all of the allegations laid out in high-stakes treason, which shows, in a nutshell, that John Brennan retained vital national security information. He hid it, he sequestered it so that he could benefit financially and basically sell out our country. That means he's a traitor. That's why I use the word high-stakes treason, because he clearly, according to the information of the book, he clearly committed treason on this country, providing aid and comfort to an enemy during a time of war that is a global war on terror. John Brennan did it to a count of possibly 25 times listed in my book. So Edward Snowden, this is a massive new development that just came down the pipe. If Edward Snowden is pardoned and or brought in somehow to testify against the intelligence community, that would be the members that have questioned John Brennan, James Clapper, Comey. This is major firepower for the Trump administration, for the constitutional republic. Let me just mention this as well, Nino, is that today I've been in communication with John Guandolo. John Guandolo is mentioned in Roger Stone's foreword. It is through John Guandolo that we know that a couple things, important things. Not just John Guandolo, but we know through John Guandolo, we know that John Brennan is a convert to Islam, and not only Islam, but Wahhabism, which is the most radical and violent sect of Islam. Through John Guandolo, we know that he converted to that during his time in Saudi Arabia. This is John Brennan. But more importantly, the development that came my way, Nino, just recently through my communication with Guandolo, and the Guandolo is a former FBI, is that James Comey. James Comey, that is the former head of the FBI. James Comey was also a communist sympathizer. So John Brennan himself has stated on lie detector that he voted for Gus Hall in the early 80s. And Juan and I were talking offline, before when you took a break before you went live, talking about Barack Obama. That's a whole other conversation. But John Brennan was likely in the early stages of when after he left the University of Texas and joined the CIA, he was likely brought up the chain of command in the CIA because of his sympathies to communism. And now I realize, just recently through John Guandolo, that Comey is also a self-identified, I have this in a quote, in a 2003 New Yorker magazine, he is a self-identified communist. So now we have not only a former director of the CIA, but a former director of the FBI, both being communist sympathizers. This is huge. And I was just in Josh Hawley's office, Nino, because I'm working with one of his staff members, trying to get them to investigate a little bit more of John Brennan. Josh Hawley has been very vocal in the past few hours and days about Comey. To add the Brennan angle to that fire would be huge for Senator Hawley. But we have some major concerning developments now with this what seems to be a complete conspiracy, a collusion that took place, and I have a FOIA out for this because there's no doubt that there's a skiff that has audio and video somewhere of this, Nino. A 2016, December 6th, I believe is the date of when this meeting took place in the Oval Office to collude against Donald Trump, who became a duly elected president, 2006, to keep him out of office. That's called the Russian collusion. It's a hoax. We know it's a hoax, and John Brennan drove that, orchestrated that through Cambridge University and the Steele dossier. That would be Christopher Steele. Major developments, very important for the Trump administration and our sovereignty and national security.
So it looks like to me, right, if I'm looking at this from a 60,000 foot view, right, I see Trump coming into National Prayer Day, which is I think the 17th, May 17th, and then signing this document that would put J.D. Vance in charge if Trump is assassinated. It looks like to me we're getting ready to go all in, and now we're just coming off the heels of this China trip. One, are we coming into the big show? I mean, is this when it begins after this National Prayer Day? I'm kind of linking it all together, putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. You know, Trump signing this document, the National Prayer Day, coming off his trip from China. It looks like it's go time, Juanito.
Well, again, I've said this to your audience numerous times. You have to have the consent of the governed when you're doing things that are this radical. You're getting ready to arrest former key people within our government who held high positions, and a lot of people are going to have mixed opinions. If you don't have 80+% of the population in agreement with you as you do some of these things, every percent less that you have increases the possibility not of civil unrest, but the civil unrest is going to happen, but of the civil unrest erupting into some type of internal civil war. It wouldn't look like necessarily what we had in the 1800s. It would be states cutting off services or disagreeing with federal stuff, similar to what Colorado has done with the governor refusing to honor a presidential pardon, things like that, and lots of other things that could mess up, pull the plug on this country from a union perspective. And so we have to avoid that so that we don't have the country come off the rails. The business of America is business. Right now, you can still go to the gas station, get gas, your bank card works at the bank machine, the power's running, the street lights work, there's maintenance people out there to keep the country going. So you can't drop the hull speed below the level of moving through the water that still gives you steerage. You have to maintain a certain momentum as a country. And so as the president is doing the things he's doing, as these things are coming to the fore, we still want to keep the country working so we don't kill, grandma, we don't have dysfunction in ways that the country comes unraveled and can't function right. It's one thing to have a seam where the threads come out and you have to re-sew the seam back together on a jacket or shirt or something like that, pants. It's another thing if it comes unraveled, because that's not easy to repair, if repair at all. So we don't want the country to come unraveled as we go through these very difficult moments just ahead to save the republic from these infiltrators.
So Juan,
who are un-American in their thinking, who have gotten themselves into positions of power in these various agencies and their cohorts. What Ian just said is so critical. People have to understand. It's not that Brennan has the legal right to do what he's doing in these agencies. He has been able to filter in cohorts, like-minded people, secret handshakes, into positions of authority where they then are operatives of his to do his will and the people that control him. Brennan's still a tool himself. He has people pulling his strings. You don't realize he's just the visible side of a bigger monster. Primarily, by the way, just to state it again, SES. I probably have more people, for example, Ian mentioned his FBI contact, within that zone than just about anybody. And we understand almost to a person, those people over at FBI and CIA who see problems identify the persons at the core of these problems as being on the payroll of senior executive service over and over and over and over. And remember, the first thing Trump did on the day he was inaugurated, in the first hour that he was back in office in January 2025, he fired just under 10,000 senior executive service personnel as one of his first acts back in office. That's the nexus of a lot of this stuff with these people, and that's a lot of the control mechanism that is available to Brennan, those hidden contacts, associations, and the money.
So Juan, let me ask you this. As we're coming into this next, what I call the next phase of the operation, looks like it's go time for indictments and arrests. This is another reason why the raids had to happen to take out the terror cells. and to neutralize Iran, to take away that card, that wild card, that nuclear wild card from Iran, so that when we go into this next phase of this operation, we have most threats neutralized, correct?
Well, right, because across the world, these people that control the Mockingbird media, that have MK Ultra at a societal level and across the world, they have so many operations going where they would hope through activity, including false flags or some monstrous event, to pull the attention of the public away from what's really going on behind the scenes and has been going on with control of the elections, control of the finances. You know, look, before to China just the other day, the day before, Besant was in South Korea and having a meeting with his counterpart out of China, their version of the Treasury Secretary, and they were having a meeting before Trump took off to go to China. What was that about? Yeah, you know, talk about behind the scenes stuff. And then the president of South Korea, who was put in prison over trying to expose election fraud in their equivalent of midterms, and they impeached him and tried to do everything they were trying to do to Trump. From a globalist standpoint, the same methodology used over and over and over, same playbook. Here the president was released on those charges. By the way, at our conference, we're premiering the movie Dark Horse, which is about President Bolsonaro out of Brazil and the work that was done against him on his reelection as president and the election frauds that occurred there. And then they put him in prison. Again, exactly what they wanted to do with Trump. This is at a global level. Remember, the people that we have here in the U.S. testifying before grand juries right now and who have met with people out of Homeland Security, all of Tulsi's staff, and then dozens and dozens now of the extended staff over at Homeland Security. They said that they had been responsible for overturning, flipping elections in 71 countries, plus the United States. This is a whole problem. And when you think of communism, when you think of players with secret handshakes across the world, as Brennan portrays and Comey is part of, it's not just a problem here in the U.S. because they can bring a threat from anywhere in the world and then pull our attention to that place. What Trump has done, and the people behind Trump, remember, Trump was invited to run. There's people that are working the problem behind the scenes that you don't know the names of and won't, and that have come up with the plan, the playbooks that are being engineered in right now. And what they're doing is they're eliminating these potential threats, these potential distractions, these potential false flags as much as they possibly can. Will they get every last one? Probably not. We're coming into drama. That's why the president wanted to secure something with the letter. But they do not have the power that they once had. It's eroding. This house of cards is coming crashing down. The roof's about to cave in, and it's showing signs of that when, Trump's going to release information that they felt desperate enough to know what was in there, that they had to go grab those boxes and filter anything out that
let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What's the relation for taking the JFK files to what's happening right now? I don't know.
Because there's still information there that's critical.
Go ahead.
There's still information that's critical in there that they don't want to be do the heavy lifting on, that shows origins, pivot points within the operations over at CIA that show that even going back to the Dulles brothers, State Department, CIA, that this is a culture within that environment that has continued to fester and deepen, tying into a globalist thing. When we do reverse engineering on, say, somebody who's found to be a spy, we have to go back to origins. When did they flip? What things did they tell us that were true or untrue? who are they getting their information from? We might have to go back, 10, 15, 20 years, 50 years to fully understand how they were compromised, what information they gave us that may actually not have been correct. And that takes time. And so knowing stuff back to the Kennedy assassination and origins can affect who got into power next, who blessed somebody to get into a particular position, and what was their real role versus what we thought was going on. It's the kind of stuff that those papers may reveal that would be a thread. You pull on it, and all of a sudden out comes some monster that wasn't fully understood prior to that.
Ian, you wanted to capitalize? Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So somebody I've been close to over the years is an author named Mark Shaw. He's now 80. In his latest book on Dorothy Kilgallen, he's talking about Marilyn Monroe. He's shown the RFK Jr., Sirhan was a patsy just like Lee Harvey Oswald. He's an attorney by trade. Kilgallen, he proved that she was murdered, and that's contrary to the New York-based official autopsy of her being dying of a barbiturate overdose. Critical here is that he has gotten into JFK Jr. I got him on the phone a number of months ago. This is back in probably September, if I recall it, whenever Paulina Luna did her first round of hearings. I got her on the phone with him on the phone. The three of us spoke recently. This is what, to give you a different angle of what Juan's talking about. You've got some major revelations that go back decades that are trying to get pushed up through the pipeline that the CIA is trying to squash. And part of that, I give you a bird's eye view of that, is where Oliver Stone comes into play, right? And so, and his take of the JFK assassination, we know that Mars was one of his main consultants in that development of that movie with Kevin Costner. But when I got Shaw on the phone with Luna, the information was from a different angle that Jefferson Morley and Oliver Stone were portraying on the Hill that day with that committee. And all of that basically fell on the backbone of what Juan just talked about. You're talking about the Dallas-approved Warren Commission, which JFK wanted to do away with. In fact, he fired Dulles, and then he gets appointed to putting together that Warren Commission. So all of that information that we've been fed right through this Mockingbird media, as Juan talks about, over the decades, that means from the time that you and I and Juan were toddlers, and then you get it through Hollywood media, that sort of thing. That's just supporting one narrative that's controlling big strain media. Let me say Council on Foreign Relations, based in New York City, which is a Wall Street think tank. Well, that supports, again, the bankers involved in the various wars. Not to draw too far offline here, but Mark Shaw narrows in from a different angle on his books regarding the Dorothy Kilgallen story. And all of these things, even though this fellow yesterday, the CIA whistleblower, testifying, and he's the one that revealed that those 40 boxes were taken. Fox News' Jesse Waters used the word raid. I think Paulina Luna used the word raid. My question is, why was the CIA given access codes to Gabbard's office?
That's my question. That's what I don't understand.
Exactly.
Well, hold on, guys. Let me just add this. I believe it's inaccurate, and let's kind of mince this through just to be, as close to perfectly accurate as we can. To say it was Tulsi's office, I think, and that's why Waters had to pull it back, and then calling it a raid, that's why Waters had to pull it back. It was puffed up into things that weren't completely accurate. It's not that the boxes weren't taken and appropriated and removed. It's the location. It was the location that was under her physical control, but not her office specifically. So she said, my offices weren't raided. And then it was not a raid as such. They just came in, they had, the right codes, got the stuff, and left. And again, that goes back
copies. Doesn't she have copies?
So.
Is it been Juanito? I mean, doesn't she? I mean, such important documents. Don't you have copies?
Well, remember, these are copies of the originals, probably. And, Yeah. In reality, these are copies of originals, but they're certified copies that are there, that have been gleaned from all the various places. So it's not like we can't find them. Again, what the CIA wanted was to make sure that maybe they sifted out a few little key things that wouldn't allow things to come out uncontrolled. What they're really concerned about isn't necessarily the direct information that's in those files, as much as if you pull on this thread, it also leads to here, to here, to here. Remember, Dorothy Kelly Allen, she was killed. A number of people involved at that time were killed in very unusual ways. And so as you start to look at who might have been in proximity to some of these players, now you start to realize, there's the kill team, and they were run by this department, this group, these people at different times. So, and we still have those today. Remember when Seth Rich, 1 year after he was killed, on July 10th, there was a person who was determined by both the U.S. House and U.S. Senate to be who he said he was, and working for Justice Department in the location that he said he was working at. Two oversight committees confirmed that he, with his attorney, did a press conference over the phone from Maryland and said he was in a Justice Department location when other contractors were laughing about the way that this person I just mentioned died, and that he was begging for his life, and when they killed him. Well, so you have, literally a kill team that's working in an official position, even though they're contractors. They have access, they have cards, let me just add this one thing. And I've said this to your audience many times before. I used to tease of some of the people that people in this audience would know about the fact that, officers within CIA don't do the real heavy lifting because they're under certain types of authorities. The real work, the heavy lifting through spy versus spy stuff, that's all done by contractors, plausible denial. So to think that these people are where this ends is not true. Just like the person talking, hearing these contractors laughing about this person's demise. It's contractors. It goes a layer deeper. So you're seeing one person, here's the question. Think of Comey. We have a person that provided a affidavit certified to Grassley, Senator Grassley, that they were present in the room when Comey commissioned two FBI personnel to go into the Trump campaign in 2015, before even the Russia stuff started, and a crosswind hurricane, and to try to honeypot men within the Trump campaign so they could get intelligence about what was going on there to use against Trump. And by the way, remember that when Papadopoulos was over in England and dealing with Stephen Halper, one of his aides, supposedly Stephen Halper's aides, tried to honeypot Papadopoulos.
George, right?
Well, Papadopoulos had a huge, George Papadopoulos has a beautiful, fantastic wife. They were, very young in their marriage, and this, group thought that they could honeypot him with this aide to Stephen Halper. Where'd that aide come from? Is she possibly one of the people that Comey commissioned, that this witness observed being commissioned, and then there was no proper documentation of this undercover operation. Why? Because it wasn't something they could justify at all within their Russia operations and spying on Trump's campaign. So who were these two women that were commissioned by Comey to infiltrate the Trump campaign? Has that come out yet? Have their names been given yet? That is the kind of thing that is yet to come out, and not that far along, and that will be devastating.
So so both of you, do you both feel that 2026, the remainder of this year, it's all systems go? Is that how you feel about it, Ian? Is that how you feel about it, Juan? Ian, go ahead.
Let me just mention Carlos Marcello. That's what Mark Shaw. He states there's a confession from an FBI FOIA he received. The Carlos Marcello in prison confessed to having organized the JFK hit. That could be, the line that I'm talking about that was squashed. I think it's contrary to Oliver Stone, and Jefferson Morley. However, Grassley, I was just in Grassley's office. I just want to piggyback real quick, Nino. I was just in Grassley's office, and any viewer viewing this should be calling his office immediately. David Bader is the guy that I'm spoken with there in regards to the content in the Brennan book. Svetlana Lakova is somebody that people should be following, in my opinion. I asked Mike Flynn, General Flynn, a couple months ago for an introduction, because you're talking about Stephen Halper, who's been an asset for both the CIA and the FBI with the communication at Cambridge University. That's where the Steele dossier came out of, from my understanding. So you got MI6 involvement there, but there's that smear. So there's another smear here that Juan's talking about with Papadopoulos, but this time with General Flynn and this woman Svetlana Lakova. I think right now, Nino, I think we've got pressure points that are coming in from unexpected angles. And like I told Matt Gaetz 2 nights ago, what you're seeing is a backpedaling of sorts. I mean, you've got a complete, whether there was authorization from one angle or another, you've got a withdrawal of $40 out of that office, which is a scramble, which means, oh, no, wait a second, there's stuff in there we can't, we can't have out. We can't let the House committee know this. We can't let the American people. We got to make some redactions here. So you've got a scramble. And what I told Matt Gaetz's audience, Nino, was that I believe because of these pressure points coming out unexpectedly, we will likely start hearing some specific names coming out from that deep state, what I'll refer to as this deep state community that, from my angle, Brennan's got a stronghold on. And one of the ways that I believe Luna and that committee right now could be helping people like us, viewers, learn more is identifying the CIA agents that went in and took those 40 boxes out. Meaning this committee, the House committee, needs to be demanding the identity of those agents, because remember, like I said, Brennan himself just a few nights ago on MS Now, Nicole Wallace, stated that there is a legion of intelligence agents within D.C. working to undermine the Trump administration. And by the way, before Juan speaks of this, I in the rotunda at the Senate building, I spoke to Michael Schnell, female. Michael Schnell is a reporter on the Hill for MS Now. I approached her about the book. That would be this book, High Stakes Treason. She hadn't heard about it, but now I've invited her to look into it. Why I'm saying this is because it seems the only media that John Brennan is talking to is MS Now, right? And so MS Now at some point, again, is going to be hit by some of these other pressure points. But that's my response, Nino, is that I think that is unexpected. That would be the ground patriot, the foot soldier that has no direct link to this intelligence community or the U.S. government. That's unexpected right now. Go ahead.
So, Ian,
let me jump in for 1 second here, Nino. A couple other quick points. the reason the idea that Snowden is is trying to work a deal, before President Trump won in 2024, I had a contact that's, lives in the presidential compound in Russia that we occasionally communicate. He had asked if I had thought that there would be an acceptance of a proposal to work something out for Snowden to be able to testify against some of the people that were in the intelligence community, including and specifically named Brennan. I just, with no direct knowledge, just on principle, said, yeah, I think that there would be, if you wanted to try to work a deal, I think there might be room for a deal there. And then I was with attorneys who dealt with Julian certain information, and similar questions were asked in that vein at that time when I was over in Spain. And so there is a desire on some of these people's part to present information concerning people into the intelligence community, including and specifically, not limited to, but Brennan precisely. Remember, the way the intelligence agencies are run by these globalista are a tag team operation. The globalist groups, CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, various other, secret handshake groups that are out there. You can name 20 of them: Atlantic Councils, Club of Rome, etc. They work together and coordinate together on their globalist ambitions, and so it's a tag team operation. You think you're only dealing with people over at CIA? No. You're dealing with a whole group of people that are working together against the interests of the American people. People and people across the world. It's so much bigger than most people understand or to understand or.
Juanito, so you're breaking up a little bit, but Ian, could I get you on NinosCorner.tv to talk more about this in the coming weeks as this starts unfolding? I would love to have you on the show along with Juanito, like we just did right now, and really go into depth on this, because I got a feeling this is going to blow wide open. And not only that, I think the deep state moves are coming. And I think that's why this National Prayer Day, that's why Trump signed that document for, just in case he's assassinated. I got a feeling this is about to get really, really bumpy.
Yeah, I'm absolutely available. More than happy to join Nino, and I would agree with you that things are certainly heating up, and the weak link from my vantage point would be John Owen Brennan. He's left a paper trail. It's clear. It's right here. It's a paper trail. So that's going to expose this syndicate. This what Juan's talking about. This global syndicate that the U.S. intelligence agencies are essentially being manipulated by. Much broader, bigger than people realize.
Let me ask you both this. What do you think is the deal with Obama going to the UK, then going to Canada, taking these secret meetings? Is he running, trying to find a place to hide? What's going on with this? Is he plotting something?
Yeah, I mean, my response to that is I don't know about the socialists to our north. I just call them socialists. The Canadians, great country, great people, but they have no chance to defend themselves. They've given up that right for deer hunting, contrary to our system here. The British, there's something going on with the British, and again, it's linked, and this is why I direct people more to Patrick Byrne. It seems to be linked. Their surveillance community, anyway, out of Cambridge University. Obama certainly knows things. Like Juan was saying, he was born. I think he said this offline. He was born into that system. John Brennan basically converted to it, right? And they've got that stronghold on it. A lot of this a global community that Juan is talking about, that runs right out of London and the system that controls their monarchy. Because let's not forget, and I mentioned this with Michael Jaco, Nino, a couple of weeks ago, but I think your viewers were probably fairly well aware of this. The City of London controls that monarchy. And that is what I think a lot of us who are very vocal on the ground level here in the States are saying with our Federal Reserve System, is that it's created in a very, very similar way to how they're strongholding that the Swiss banks are strongholding the British monarchy. But that would be my answer. That intelligence community, that international network, is very, very much tied to the backbone of how their economy operates globally. But not to get too far stretched. That's my thought.
All right, and Juanito, I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Laura Loomer is attacking Tulsi Gabbard, saying she's a traitor.
Well, who's getting her intel from? Who's paying her bills? Who's doing stuff behind the scenes with who's she beholden to? Yeah. Say it one more time.
Is she kind of like a necessary evil that Trump needs to deal with right now? Because Trump really backs her.
Trump has. No. He's gone after her a couple times here recently. He did have her on Air Force One, but she's somebody else's tool in there. And the only thing I'd say in that regard, Nino, everybody gets to pick a lane, and as time goes on, a lot of these relationships become clearer and clearer and clearer. How many times have I told your audience that the real problem here is the City of London, the city within the city, where the Queen, when she was alive, had to go to the gate of the City of London, take off her shoes, enter, curtsy and bow, kiss the ring, kiss the ass of the mayor of the City of London, where the square mile where all the banks are, which is the old Roman city within London with its own wall, etc. What Ian is telling you is the same thing that I'm saying to the audience here. There's a nexus of authority and control within these global networks that hasn't been recognized. Even China hasn't been their own man because the banks are controlling China. Hong Kong controlled by the Brits. Oh, we left, we're done. Hiding in plain sight, these hidden relationships and power plays that control the direction of the world, even into the finances and things like that. So there's games within the games. More of this will get exposed, and the relationships of certain people within those games. I don't need to be the internet police. Enough people, you will know them by their fruits, by their actions. So you don't have to guess. Before this is all over, a lot of these alliances are going to come out. In fact, I'll tell you one little sneaker. So I've seen a certain person inside the Trump operations that has, for all the world, he's just the greatest guy in the world. And really speaking truth about stuff going on, especially out of England and like that. Yet I know he's a paid operative to MI6.
You want to say who it is?
1,000%. And it's no, I'm not going to go there. But over time, that will get exposed. It will not be unknown into the media, and there's going to be some embarrassment over that, I believe, by all the parties involved. It's all going to come out.
It'll be very, very close.
As this thing comes unraveled, it's all going to come out. That's the whole point, and they don't want it to come out.
Is he very close? Is he very close to Trump?
Well, we'll let that come out.
Okay.
It's not a minor.
I don't want to put. Yeah, I don't want. I know you want to stay in your lane. I get it, fellas. Thank you so much, Juanito.
Well, let me just say this, So I don't want to deal in that particular regard. Hold on. This is important. There's going to be plenty of efforts to slime and besmirch everybody. But some of that's not going to stick because the truth's going to come out. Who was related to who and how's it going? I use this as an example. if right up until Admiral Rogers presented what he had to President Trump, President-elect Trump, back in 2016, November 17th.
Be careful.
If he had not gotten into that office and shown Trump that he was being, with paperwork showing the exact listening in on him, you would have thought he was a bad guy. He got to the head of NSA, and not an easy thing to do. Arguably the most powerful position, second to the presidency on the planet. The biggest intelligence gathering agency on the planet. And yet when he broke to the side of Trump, he showed his true alliance affiliations and gave critical information, not just to Trump, but to the country. He had to play the game all the way along. There's other people that have had to play the game, and even actions. You could argue maybe that a Brennan or a Comey or other people were in some kind of a deep cover operation to expose some of the other players, and they tell stuff. Well, it'll come out, and they won't have been who they would like you to believe, pure as the wind-driven snow. That's what this moment in time is about. Everybody gets to kind of get revealed for who they really, truly are. And even within your listenership, Nino, a lot of people that are a little bit too ready to dump Trump at the drop of a hat, as things come out more and more and more, it'll be harder and harder to side with the crews that, say that Trump has somehow lost his way or whatever. We're doing just fine. Trump's said that he will never betray us. He will never abandon us or go some other direction. I think he's telling the truth. And but some of this stuff isn't clear quite yet. The fog is lifting.
Juanito, thank you for joining me. Ian, thank you for joining me. Ian, I'll be in close contact with you. Let's line up another show for .tv. Nino Corner.
And by the way, and I hope other hosts will get Ian on, because Ian is doing the Lord's work. He's got and his book's fantastic. Go get it. I mean, and I'm so thankful, Ian. I look forward to seeing you there mid-June. You want to hear Ian in person? We still got some room. And Dark Horse, the new Jim Caviezel movie, if you like sound.
Well, I have one question.
Love Dark Horse. It's right there. Yeah.
I have a question. You guys, since we're all going to be in Vegas, are we going to play some roulette? Some blackjack roulette?
Yeah.
Are we going to gamble a little bit?
Well, I won't do it during the conference, and I'll be tied up the day before, but maybe after we can decompress. And,
you know me, Juan. I pop in and out. But we are going to go get Italian food, right? We're going to go get some Italian food?
Oh, yeah. Love that. We'll get out there and enjoy it. I love my... there's certain things that I love about a certain place. So, yeah. All right, by the way, anybody that hasn't seen it yet, go over and Tina Peters. I've got a coin over at allpatriots at gumroad.com that's not trinket by design, because how are we going to remember this period of time decades from now when the kids are trying to understand what happened here? Some things will fade away, other things will be kept. That's why we do it with silver. It'll be kept. And who's this person? What was their role? Tina Peters, front and center. Her work, her dedication, and the time in prison totally unjustly. We're in prayer. I hope that we're going to get her out end of the month, and based on what Tickton told Trump and this moment with these disclosures of foreign interference. And if so, one way or another, whether we have to remote her in because she's going to work on getting her health, or we get her there in person, I hope to have her at that conference free indeed. So love you, and I hope people put you on every show out here in the Patriot community to understand what your message is, and I look forward to seeing you in Vegas.
Yeah, this is a stellar show. I'll see you both in Vegas. God bless both you, Ian and Juanito. Thank you for joining me. God bless you guys.